2, 3, 4.
And welcome to another video which I'm Vegan and Frodo. I'm still in Belgium, but to this video is about Netherlands. I'm a bit messy, been running around, it's been raining, also this is pretty dirty. But yeah, as long as it's dirty. Just gotta find a way to do things. Do you want to see the street? I'll show you the street. And like far there in the distance is like Brussels, the city. But like check out all these different buildings. Everything feels like a bit old, but very mixed. Very mixed, not like a single standard type thing. So anyway, let's talk about Amsterdam. As you know, I flew into Amsterdam and I spent like half a day, you can say, just rolling around, like checking out all the different things. And what is my impression and what kind of things I've learned there, what kind of things that jumped out at me. We're all going to talk about that in this video, so if you're interested, stay tuned. So, you know the famous things Amsterdam is famous for? Architecture. Although, mind you, I absolutely love the architecture and all the channels, all the beautiful channels and bridges and buildings were absolutely stunning there. It's so beautiful, like seriously, and especially like more a whole chunk like buildings along the channels and kind of more central, right? And it's like, but even like within, you know, 5k radius, 10k radius from the center, there's still loads of channels, and all the buildings are just like so cute, so unique. Like they almost look like the like, I don't know, chocolates. They're really beautiful, huge long windows, huge thin doors, and you know the channels and the boats, it all like adds some special type of like romantic feel to it. The architecture is stunning, like I absolutely could not get enough of the buildings, eh? It just looked so beautiful. As most tourists do, I checked out the red light district and the like I walked through like areas where there was a lot of coffee shops, and that was a bit overpowering and different and really kinda, I mean, I can say it took me by surprise, but I could not be surprised. I specifically went there to check it out, right? So like to have a look, and it's like it is what they tell you it is, like it's exactly that. And I actually talked to my Warmshouse host about the whole thing, and like obviously he asked me like how was that, like what did I think of all that, and he basically said that the point is that like most cities have that prostitution, let's just say the word out loud, but it's kind of more underground. Like I mean, I know these things like do happen, like brothels and that exist in all the different countries and all the different cities, so like we can't just pretend that all the other cities are perfect and just this one is a bit different. No, like it exists everywhere. And a point of Netherlands politics and politicians of Amsterdam are making is that they're kind of letting it being focused. There are cameras everywhere, you know, and people are able to kind of manage it a lot easier. I feel like maybe I should get off this thing in case someone wants to open the window and I'm sitting here talking on it. But basically, it's when it's more manageable. It's a bit dirty here. When it's more manageable, like it's all in one place and it's not through the city, people are able to kind of, well, government tries to control it just a little bit more. They feel like they have just a little bit more of a ability to do something, and they also do try and help the girls that do it, because I mean some of them do it voluntarily, some are not, and there's like that is also like a big issue in that place in the country and stuff. and yeah, like the government tries to kind of get the girls off the streets, basically, to get them good jobs, to even sometimes give them new identities and things like that. And it's like a lot of very interesting things that going on behind the scenes. And it's not that they're like thinking it's amazing, but it's just more, it's something that happens. Let's just be honest about it, and we will try and fix it in one way or another. He also said the majority of these people are like, quite a few of them are foreign girls that come basically to make money. And because it's European Union, it's pretty easy for, you know, anyone from a European Union country to come and do that. And I actually said there's quite a few not European but neighboring countries that are not as well off doing it as well. It's like, you know, it's like an official job, and it's not like illegal, so they can easily do that. And there's loads of students that do it as well. In fact, education actually costs about, yeah, like it's like a similar type thing. But yeah, so we talked a lot about different things, right? And he also said that the whole weed and all that, party pills and stuff, it's more like a tourist thing. Because like no regular person, if they're doing it all the time and tons and tons and tons, they're never going to be able to like hold a steady job or have like a responsible, reasonable life. So most of Dutch people, most people who live in Amsterdam, they don't do it. Like they maybe do it like more occasionally, but a lot of, you know, people who live not in Amsterdam, and like I mean, I know people in Australia and New Zealand that do weed, and like it's not really, you know, like legal and stuff, but people still do, people still get it. So it's more like it's there, and they probably do it like in the same level as others. I still probably wouldn't like want to live in a place where it's legal, but like I think it's just more of a like my kind of personal opinion. I've never done that. I've never done like any kind of drugs, so to me it's just like a little bit of a different, I don't know, just different thing. I've just never even considered that as an option. I don't know. I don't know. Don't hate me. Anyway, so that's like, we talked about that, and we also talked about, it's funny because he straight up told me like where I was staying. I don't know if you can like go check out on Strava and stuff where I was staying, but he straight up told me that he's like, this neighborhood that you're staying in tonight, I recently moved here, and this is one of the worst neighborhoods in Amsterdam basically. And it was just like, oh my god, why do you live here? Because he's just like a guy who's doing postgrad at uni, has a job, like he's just, you know, like a person that, you know, like a reasonable kind of, you can say socio kind of layer. Socio, is that like a word? Is that the right way to explain it? Like a, yeah, society layer. And he's just like, well, it's like a, how do you say, a program that the government again is putting up. So a lot of the people that live in the area I stayed at, there were people who came to Holland. They were not like regionally from Europe. They're all from all the different, they're like South Americans. They're from South America, small little like country that they had there in our like region that used to be a colony. It was a colony of Dutch people back when everyone was doing that, you know, fighting each other. And then basically after all the wars and all that craziness, they gave these people an option, and a bunch of them came over to Europe, to Netherlands, to live in Amsterdam. So, and they put them like there in that area specific. And at that time, the economy wasn't doing too great, so the government wasn't putting much money into their development. Like, I mean, obviously, right, like when you put a person who was brought up in a very, very different culture, a very different kind of life experiences, different things that were considered the norm. And I mean, I feel like I can definitely talk about these things as well, like being brought up in Russia and then moving to New Zealand and moving to Australia. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's like a huge ginormous difference, but there is. Like, I mean, obviously the difference would be bigger if it was like some South American poor country, but I wouldn't say Russia is overly like a crazy, I mean, it's still first world country, but it's not like compared to, you know, England or, you know, America. It's it's different. Like the culture different, the mindset is different, and when you move to a new place that thinks different, that expects different things of you, that does things differently, it's just really like you need to give people time and ability to adapt. So basically, government wasn't putting much effort. So these people not many of them were able to find a place for themselves, like as in they didn't really find themselves in this new environment. So they kind of went a little bit off the streets and some of them became involved in not very good kind of companies, if you know what I mean. So basically, yeah, so now the government, and they all kind of lived in that area because it was like cheap to live there, and they just kind of were put there to begin with. So now the government understands that issue, so they're trying to challenge it by reintroducing different ethnicities into that area. That includes the locals, the people who were born in Netherlands, in different areas. There's, students, different, Indian people, British people, just like everyone that they have living there. And they're kind of trying to mix it up. Indonesian people, that is like also one of their colonies, and to mix it up. And then every 5-year cycle, first of all, they evaluate the results and how well that worked. Oh yeah, and they're also putting in a lot of people who are into arts and music and more cultural. And they're expecting all these people who come in living there, because this area is very cheap to live at, right? So people are happy to move there because they do get some sort of benefits from it. And it's not like you're the only white kid on the block. It's like they're kind of mixing it and intermingling it, and they're hoping that these people will start, who kind of were brought up in Europe, on kind of that other side, they will start bringing in their shops, their culture, their whatever little tweaks and tricks and things like that into the area. And the area will start improving. Their kids will intermix with the other kids, and that is their way. The way he explained it, he's that is the Dutch government way of gently changing something. And I thought that was pretty cool, because it's not like you're forcing. So yeah, and every 5 years, one of these old looking buildings gets demolished. And in fact, that certain area, the architecture and the way things are built, looks so different from the rest of the Amsterdam that I've been at and ridden through. And it wasn't just one suburb I've ridden through around for 50 something or 60 k's around Amsterdam. So I've been in a few different places, not just the center, not just but I've ridden around, and that area looked very, very different. And it was really funny. You'll see a little bit of videos here and in the vlogs. But basically, yeah, these people kind of had that mindset, and at the time, that's just how they built it. And it was built based on the Soviet kind of, and it did a bit reminded me of the way we have suburbs and stuff in Russia, and how things are in Russia, with the buildings and the way they're built, big huge concrete boxes basically. So yeah, the point is the government is wanting to demolish it, a building, a section of it, not a section, a building, but it's a whole bunch of them there, every 5 years. So then and build a new one, improved, better, with something that's more suitable and nicer. So that's an interesting way. That's an interesting way that they're introducing people, they're mixing them up, they're welcoming them, and they're helping them with to adapt and to be welcomed by kind of all these different communities that they might get introduced to, different cultures that live in the area, so they don't feel so isolated and excluded. And they all get enough food, and they get shelter as well. So that's really cool. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was very, very interesting way of handling situation when, government's trying to fix something, and how they go about it, instead of just getting angry at these people that may not have adapted. They could have gone the route that, oh, you should be grateful for we did that, why aren't you following all these different rules? But instead they just let them, be what they are, and assist them in adapting to the local areas. There's people walking past on the road. Another cool thing is, like one of the big questions I had is Holland, Netherlands, Amsterdam, Dutch language. I was just like, what is all this? Like, you know, Germans live in Germany and speak German language. Why there's like a million different names for the same thing over in Netherlands? You know, like take out Amsterdam, right? But like Netherlands, Holland, and Dutch. I was just like, what is going on? So the way he's talking about it is that like they have two areas, regions, in the whole of Amsterdam and in the whole of Netherlands, the country, and there's south and northern Holland, and all of the area is kind of called Holland, and that used to be like is like the center of the whole commerce, economics, politics, and all that stuff. And usually it's just foreigners that refer to the whole country as Holland, but in reality it's just the two provinces that are Holland, like all together. The rest, it's all just Netherlands, and people like call themselves, they say I'm from Netherlands, or we're Dutch, but that's just a translation to English, like, because you know you can say sprechen Sie Deutsch, it's like speak German, right? And that's just, they're like, because it's a Germanic language that they speak, like part of that family. It's very, very, you know, kind of intermingled, and there's just a translation for that type thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And also we talked about the water windmills. That was really, really epic. So basically the whole of, I'll see if I can put in some pictures here to kind of explain it, but basically all of Netherlands is like sort of on the dip. They're almost the whole thing was a swamp first of all, and then Vikings that used to live in Norway and all that area, they went around looking for food and provision and things like that and new places to live, and they ended up moving into Netherlands because in Norway and stuff it's amazing and it's beautiful, but they were kind of running out of food and running out of all these things, especially in winter back in the day. So they just went around looking for new lands basically. So they came into Netherlands and they started building cities on the swamp because the whole area is a swamp. So the actual ground is sort of below the sea level. So in order to have that work, they kind of built a little raised thing. I forgot what it's called. I want to call it like a dike, but it's like some sort of like word for a geographical word. I forgot the word for it, sorry. But it's like kind of a hill thing that separates the actual water from the ground. It's like a little hill thing. So the watermills, the windmills, they are used to move, especially when the tide is high there, or you know, seasons like, you know, when everything's melting and global warming and things like that. They actually use them to move the water from the land where people live back to the ocean. And back in the day the windmills were used a lot, and there's still a lot of them, more coastal, because I wanted to see windmills and I actually did, but he was just kind of talking that yeah, most of them are around the coast and not really so much inland, but more or less these days it's also a little bit touristic type thing, and mostly they have everything like automatic, and they have like a mechanical type stuff that does it more efficiently, more effectively, which removes water from the mainland back to the ocean. So that was really cool. I thought that was pretty interesting. Another interesting thing is there is an area like sort of west, like sort of in the west, but like closer to the border with Belgium in the side here again, but coastal, called Zeelandia. And I lived for about a decade in New Zealand, right? So basically that New Zealand was called New Zealand, based on that area Zeelandia. And that was because the history would have it that the Dutch people, a lot of Dutch people came. There was like a Dutch, what's called, tell me the word, the person that explores, I forgot the word, like captain, I think, let's just call it captain, explorer, went into New Zealand and he basically like discovered and was there. So, but then the British came and they took over the whole thing, but the name stayed as Zeelandia. That was like his, like the last name or first name or something like that, like he called it Zeelandia. And similarly to Tasmania is which is part of Australia, of course. It's it's a Dutch name, and it's also based on the Dutch explorer Tasmania. Yeah. So super interesting, very cool. Loads of different things going on over there. Also, yeah, like they're wanting to move to electric cars, they're wanting to move to renewable energy. There's a lot of recycling stuff going on. There isn't much like resources wise, like, you know, coal, iron, all of that, oil, none of that really in Netherlands. Well, basically it's a swamp area. But the main thing, because I asked him, I was like, so what is it that grows in the country and what are your exports? So the thing that would be the biggest export for them, well, he said, okay, they grow a lot of like potatoes, a lot of, you know, cauliflower, a lot of like kind of agricultural type stuff that grows well in that sort of soil. But he's like, the biggest export that we have is actually the knowledge. So a lot of people get educated and they go outside and they take their knowledge with them and basically live in the world and do all the things. And it's funny, and he pointed out, and I should have thought of that, like, but for some reason I just didn't. Shell, you know, the company Shell, that's a Dutch company. It was started there in Netherlands because it's like a Royal Dutch company. Shell, Royal Dutch, like I should have just, but it didn't register at the time. But I thought that was pretty interesting, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, like a lot of stuff. I've been talking for 21 minutes. I'm not even sorry though, because I feel like there's so many interesting things that I got out of that country, just like sort of intellectually and mind, and just really learning so much about all the different things in the area, like all the different countries. So like there was no original like people that were there, like there's no like aboriginals or anything. It's just, yeah, like Vikings when they were populating the area to begin in there historically initially, and then all these little bit of people everywhere in the area, you know, a little bit came from France, some came from Germany, some came like just from like around the border, some came from UK, and that's kind of how the whole thing, like the whole nation started. So he's like, you would see a lot of mixture of different cultures, different like traditions and things in the area, and it's not like so. Although, I mean, we still think of different things that remind us of the Netherlands, right? Like when we think about it, we think of the dairy products, the cheese, we think of the cloaks, the wooden shoes, and there's a lot of flowers. Like that's like another thing that he said that was like a really big export, like just the flowers, the tulips and roses, and they're like very global. Obviously you got to go there in the right season if you want to see the tulips. That's like spring. But anyway, that was really cool. I thought that was very interesting, and I just really liked getting to know that country and that city. And I loved that I could have, they also have like the highest swing in the world. That was pretty cool. Like I was under it, I didn't end up going on it, but because I just don't know, I was just chilling. I was feeling like I wanted to just chill and watch the sunset at the bottom and not go up, because you also like gotta pay even if you just want to go have a look at the top. But you'll see that in the vlogs, and we watched it from the bottom. You could see like people going side to side, so it's all good. Interesting. The supermarkets have vegan food as well, like, you know, you have your soy milks, you have your soy yogurts, you have your fruits and veg. I think it's really good time to tour Europe, like, because it's not really that warm, especially if you're from like Australia or someplace like you're used to that kind of weather, like just because it's warm here. It's warm, but it's not as crazy humid as it gets in Queensland specifically. And it's just very comfortable riding. Just don't forget your sunscreen, otherwise you're gonna get sunburnt like some people. And it's there's like loads of berries on sides of roads that you can like go berry picking. The roads, there's so many bicycle paths that you get so confused actually, like which one am I supposed to be taking to get me to XYZ, which is like why day before, like when was it, yesterday, it took me like so long to actually get to the border, because there's so many bike paths and you gotta like make sure you go on the right one, and if you don't, you can't get across this channel, so you have to like go back. But it's all good. It's been very interesting and very fun. So I will say goodbye here, because it's been like over 20 minutes now that I've been chatting for. But I absolutely loved the country, loving the experiences, the people I meet, the chats I have, the knowledge I'm gaining, and just understanding, like a wider, greater understanding of different nations, different cultures, different traditions, different like foods and everything, like how everything is run, the politics of every country different, the different attitude, even the attitude. It's crazy to me that like Norwegians and Finnish people, they're like in the army, they're like trained to fight Russians. Yeah, like you come somewhere like Amsterdam, and the international relationships between the Amsterdam and the Russians, they're like really, really friendly, and just the attitude is completely, totally different. They like buy oil from Russia, and they're pretty like happy, sweet, whatevs. They never mind. Like an interesting thing, like there's another little cherry on top that I'll tell you in this video about that. Peter the Great, the Emperor of Russia, he went to Netherlands, to Amsterdam, back in his days obviously, and he studied in Amsterdam for 5 years. He was learning how to build ships, basically. He was learning that from, you know, obviously like Vikings were living there, and they were like incredible, and building ships. I actually went to a Viking museum in Oslo, and that was pretty epic, pretty interesting, very, very impressive ships. You know, like this is like totally to the side, but they like buried people in the ships and like sent them to seas, and that was also like very interesting and different. I didn't realize they were doing that, but I suppose that's was done the way it was done. And yeah, so basically he loved the architecture and everything, like the channels, the bridges, the architecture, and the general everything so much in Amsterdam and Netherlands that he got a lot of architects from there come and built St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg, and that's why St. Petersburg looks very, very European, because it was done and designed and completed by European architects from Netherlands and like Austria. I think some people came from Austria, and yeah, basically his idea was taken from Amsterdam. So it's they're very, very beautiful cities, and that just, yeah, that's like, I feel like that's like a little cherry on top. That's like, that's cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. So yeah, he lived there 5 years, and he loved it so much he took it back home with him, as well as learning how to build ships. Alright, let's say goodnight here. I hope you're having a beautiful, wonderful day. Hope you are remembering to stop counting calories, start counting health, count your adventures, count your patience, be patient, chase your dreams, even if you know it will take you ages and ages and ages. The time will pass, and you will be just that little bit closer to where you need to get to. Lots of love to you guys. Thanks for checking in, and I see you again soon. Bye.